I've been with a few of my cronies, one or two pals of mine. We went in a hotel, we did very well, aye, and then we came out once again. And then we went into another, that is the reason I'm fou. We had 6 Dochin Dorises, then sang a chorus, just listen, I'll sing it to you. I belong to Glasgow, dear old Glasgow town, but there's something the matter with Glasgow.
Glasgow has come on a lot since those hazy days captured by Thomas Annan in the 1860s and 70s. The city was seeing rapid population growth as a result of an increase in industry, and this led to overcrowding and all its associated ills. Annan was not only charting the overcrowding that existed in narrow closes and back courts, he was also charting the city's architecture and layout before it was swept away in a great social reform that sought to make life better for the poorer classes. Pubs, like everything else, have seen much change over the years. They have changed with the times and differing social trends, often having their interiors ripped out and replaced with something more suited to tastes at the time. Some have even been completely destroyed, like the old college bar shown here, demolished just this year. This video is not about changing social trends, it's about public houses. But in the top 10 that follows, at least a few have managed to escape the indignity of being footered with and remain by and large intact in all their Victorian splendour. A few have been spruced up in recent times and probably offer a good argument for the benefits of renovation. They have gone from being tired and run down to vibrant success stories. Everyone has their own idea of what constitutes a good pub, and consequently will have their own top 10. This is my top 10. I've tried to focus on traditional pubs, and so have omitted many excellent establishments built in disused churches and the like. Remember to check Google for opening times, which can be changeable as we emerge from this pandemic. And when you visit Glasgow, perhaps for the first time, one thing I can guarantee from the people of Glasgow is a huge welcome. And so, without further ado, in reverse order, it's number 10, the Ben Nevis. The Ben Nevis is a small corner pub in a Victorian tenement not far from COP26. Its small size probably means the interior layout has not changed much from its earlier Victorian days, and the counter is probably pretty much where it's always been. It was totally refurbished a few decades ago and now feels quite snug and cosy. Like many of Glasgow's pubs, it has an excellent range of whiskies on offer. And at number 9, it's the Thornwood. The Thornwood is a good example of what can be done with an old tired pub to breathe life back into it and create a vibrant business welcoming to all. Before being totally revamped inside and out just a few years ago, the pub felt a bit dreary. Now, it's bright and airy and very well run. As well as good outside seating, the interior has some nice secluded snugs where you may sample good food and drink, including a great selection of bottled beers. And at number 8, it's the doublet. A traditional Glasgow pub with an interior little changed since the 1960s. The doublet was one of the first pubs in the city to sell real ale during the fight back against an almost ubiquitous pasteurised and filtered keg beer that was being served in almost all pubs. With an open interior downstairs, it's the sort of pub where you feel as if you could have a right good natter with anyone sat at any other table. I've always thought of the doublet as a small oasis, where I may escape the rigours of big city life for a glorious and most calming bit of time. And at number 7, it's the Lismore. Something more than a bit special here. It was once called Mullen's Bar and probably had a few other names before that. But in the 1990s it went through a major renovation that saw it transformed into a Highland retreat. The degree of craftsmanship that went into the renovation is truly amazing. Everywhere you look, from the curving counter to the door handles, is a joy to behold. And no matter how often you visit, you'll come across something you've never seen before. Great range of whiskies and a special surprise in the gents' urinal. The Lismore still very much feels like a traditional Glasgow pub. And at number 6, it's the State Bar. Like most pubs, the State has had different names in the past. It was once called Limburns and also Shadows. With a central island counter and a lot of agreeable woodwork, the State feels very much like an original Edwardian pub. There are cosy, secluded seating areas, walls festooned with old photographs, and a great selection of ales on tap. And at number 5, it's the Bon Accord. The Bon Accord has been a top real ale bar in the city since the 1970s and continues to have a great selection of ales today. A very well-run pub that always feels welcoming, the sort of place where you pop in for a beer and end up staying for a long, very agreeable time. The interior has been altered since the 1970s, but the Bon Accord very much feels like a traditional pub. Huge selection of whiskies, some very rare, on offer. And at number 4, it's the Old Toll Bar. The Old Toll Bar is on the other side of the River Clyde and not far from COP26. I am quite simply blown away every time I'm in it. Basically, what you have here is a perfectly preserved Victorian pub interior. It truly is astonishing and an architectural gem. It is probably the finest pub interior in the whole city. Everywhere you look there is old dark wood stained by over 100 years of tobacco smoke. There are huge wooden barrels on the gantry bearing the numbers 1 to 8. A lovely old counter with match strikers and signs of dividing panels now removed. And there are huge advertising mirrors for beers and whiskies. And at number 3, it's the Loriston. From the outside, the Loriston looks just like any other Glasgow pub that has outlived the rest of the building it was once attached to. But boy oh boy, are you in for a treat. Essentially what you have here is a perfectly preserved pub interior dating to the 1960s. On the surface that might not sound too exciting, but when you consider that most pub interiors of this period were ripped out and replaced during some renovation, then you very quickly realise that this is something very, very special. Even the pie heater goes way back decades, and possibly to the 1960s, and still it keeps those pies hot. And at number 2, it's the Scotia. The Scotia is one of the city's oldest pubs, with a lovely old tavern feel about it. Complete with match strikers and a spittoon trough, the counter is easy to reach as the floor slopes in its direction, and you feel that a moment's inattentiveness could see you rolling and tumbling for another beer. The Scotia was first licensed in 1815, and while it has gone through many changes and alterations over the years, it still very much feels very old. It's been famous for live music and once featured Billy Connolly. And finally, at number 1, it's the Horseshoe. A city centre bar that feels as if it is the very heart of Glasgow. The Horseshoe is an old and very well preserved pub with parts going way back into the Victorian period. Everywhere you look there are horseshoes. Apparently a previous owner, John Scowler, named it the Horseshoe and added all the horseshoes because it tied in with the equine names of other bars he owned, like the Spur Bar and the Snafflebit, each being decorated with horseshoes and photographs of horses. The initials JYW that you can also see refer to John Young White, who took over the bar from John Scowler in 1923. The Horseshoe is a truly great traditional Glasgow pub.
I belong to Glasgow, dear old Glasgow town, but there's something the matter with Glasgow, for it's going round and round. I'm only a common old working lad, as anyone can see, but when I get a couple of drinks on a Saturday, Glasgow belongs to me.
Yep.